Greetings everyone. As you can see, this video is going to be quite long. DTSama wrote an essay on mapping and how it evolved, or rather devolved, into what we have now. While these are not my words, I endorse his views. This video is to raise awareness and to give a wake-up call to the community. On 2016 mappers and their delusions. The history of PP mapping. DTSama started off this post to reply to a random comment on Blue Dragon's latest maps thread, but it was too long to post as a comment, so here is an essay instead. I am going to quote from now on. This is my own biased view of how mapping has evolved since the introduction of PPv2. Among facts, there are opinions. Among opinions, there are facts. Some opinions may not reflect your own, so read it at your own risk. Although if you find any factual errors in the essay, please report back. To quote from that thread, "You seem to be saying that mappers are not mapping for player enjoyment, but then you say they are spamming jumps to make the map more fun. Are 2016 mappers just delusional and totally out of touch and think what they are doing is fun when it isn't? Or are you trying to say that jump spam maps are fun, but somehow still inferior to other better kinds of fun maps?" Let me answer as a player who had been fed up with the 2016 mapping of putting randomly angled, randomly spaced jumps all over the playfield with little to no logic, as long as the angle is less than 90 degrees. Yes, 2016 mappers are delusional and out of touch, and so are the players. Blue Dragon is very right saying that they are forcing jumps where they shouldn't be, making the player frustrated because of missing in stupid spots. But players dismiss misses caused by bad flow, bad angles and overall bad mapping as shit misses and random misses most of the time. The bad flow really becomes apparent if you spend some time playing some good 2010 to 2014 maps, until you get the structure they have behind. If you miss on these maps, it really feels like it is your fault, and not the maps. There are plenty of bad old maps, but some mappers were consistently good at what they did, and got the same recognition as some bad mappers are getting today. Players starting from about 2015 onward are trained since day one to aim randomly placed jumps with no logic behind them. It is only natural they start to think that this is all there is to mapping. It's either that or Bronzifixia Haloversible Funzel style mapping, right? To understand how we got where we are, you have to know some history of mapping and how the skill of the top players and most of the other players changed over time. 2014, the year mapping flourished. Top players were starting to get better at aim, but they had no maps to play and train on, so it was either unranked maps of subpar quality but still good enough to be played, such as Red Like Roses, which is understandable since they are unranked, or to play double time on anything remotely jumpy, like this map. PPv2 just rolled in at the start of the year, February 2014, and the general player base wanted to rank up. PP kind of represented relative skill levels well at this point, as PP mapping wasn't a thing yet, and it wouldn't be an exact science as it is now, for a pretty long time. Mostly, all normal maps in the 170 to 200 PP range were what we would now consider underrated. Also because of OD7, but that's for another time. They pretty much all went on to play R8 double time, which implied OD7 double time, on jumpy 130 to 150 BPM maps from 2011. At this point in time, 300 PP was a lot. Current players playing for 380 to 420 PP scores would have top ranks in the 260 to 280 PP range, with the occasional, very try-harded 340 PP score if they went back in time, retaining their current skill, and assuming they adapted to the 2013 mapping meta. Top 50 was about 6000 pp. Only at the very top you had 400 pp scores with Wob Wob Wolf, Duduchi, who had 500 pp score with remote control, and Cookiezi, who was banned, but now we know he had about 3 to 500 pp scores, and the likes of them. Incidentally, since PPV2 was a slight rework of the official OSTP ranking system, it was already known back then that full-screen jumps and huge difficulty spikes in otherwise easy maps were overrated, thanks to remote control. It was also known that slider maps, technical maps, and simply just hard patterns were underrated as hell, thanks to maps like Talent Shredder, wall maps in general, and Cookiezi's double time hidden full combo on Carnival. But, as OSTP was unofficial and only had access to the top 50 scores of each single map, it didn't have enough of an effect to shape mapping as PPV2 did. Farming PP with no mod and hard rock was very hard. No mod was for the elite, as it gave no PP due to IR9 on 190 to 200 BPM, also because low-spaced, hard-to-read patterns in short bursts, which did not cap the strain value of the PP system, thus getting very low start rating. Think of any wall map. Hard rock farming meant jumping from no-mod OD7 maps straight into the world of pain that is OD10, though it became somewhat easier to get into it, as IR9 DT meant getting used to OD9 to OD9.67. which straightened the path towards hard rock, but still, the lack of maps meant that you had to be Telua or Wob Wob Wolf to get any serious hard rock hidden PP. The only viable way to get easy PP was, pretty much, to play double time. Koigukuro being ranked at the same month as PPV2 caused top players to figure out soon that they could double time hidden assess the map for the freest 320 PP of their life. And so they did. Accidentally, PP mapping was discovered, as it was at the time. Constant spacing, simple patterns, short 8-note bursts, R8, OD7 to OD8 double time on 200 to 220 BPM. A huge influx of Senya maps by Satellite, Delis maps, Gochiusa maps, and other maps in this style was born, and the average PP score grows from between 140 and 180 to between 230 and 260. As that amount of PP was seen as too high, this is when the DT farmer phrase was born. There is no mention of IR9 DT farming, because at the time it was seen as IR11 is seen nowadays, and as IR10 was seen before that. People said, "It is too fast for the eyes to see!" Well, loads of bullshit. But it was indeed very hard to get into. All the IR9 DT maps that were easy enough to be played by an aspiring DT player were either way too high BPM or low enough BPM with too fast slider velocity and somewhat complex patterns for someone who is just getting into IR 10.3. After all, if the map had simple patterns, mappers before 2013 used IR8 rather than IR9. IR9 on low BPM was for more complex maps, although a few farmy IR9 DT maps did appear, like this and this, come to mind. The only ones who destroyed IR9 DT maps were Duduchi, Dragon Human, who is now Sayonara Bai, and Snow White, who is now H-Wick. But Duduchi was already somewhat inactive. Around this time, Tillerino appears, simply giving you maps out of the top ranks of people with similar top ranks to yours. Aspiring mappers took notice of what the player base was playing at the time. Jumps! IR8 double time, 6 stars, 7 stars for top players. There was a serious lack of 5.3 to 6 star ranked no-mod maps, and players in general were vehemently lamenting about this.
Rank harder maps.
The bets were too Nazi, etc. were common utterances. And perhaps they weren't wrong, as this is about the time as the rise of Hanzer and his You Miss You map, which was the most controversial map of the year. Hanzer did to mapping that year what HoloWings is doing to it nowadays. Loctav logged the thread. Telua quit because of it. Pepe replied. Lots of discussion, lots of drama. Some players and mappers liked it, some players and mappers didn't. Like it or not, that map was the biggest advancement in mapping that year, and you can still see the impact it has had on even today's mapping meta. Sword Art Online opening, Ignite went on to win the Map of the Year contest, which was more about popularity than quality. But Hanser wasn't the only mapper making his big debut. Another mapper who could be best described to the 2016 audience as the Arles of 2013. He filled the lack of unranked copy-paste same map but fun IR9, IR10 jumpy 5 to 6 star maps for aspiring top players. They quickly became popular among solo and multiplayer tryharders to enjoy. This mapper was Siren, who ranked his first map, Hanatan Ermenga Tausenai. It featured full-screen jumps and was quickly hidden hard-zocked by Tuluva, and got his first 400 PP score on it. While the jumps were a bit too much for most players to hit and acquire PP, not helped by the fact that the hardest jumps weren't at the very end, or very beginning, like the PP maps for today. It wasn't itself a popular no-mod farm map, but it definitely helped ranking harder and harder no-mod maps, one of which was Golden Wolf's World's End, very popular among the top no-mod players at the time. That, too, has been quickly hidden hard-zocked by Telua for 460 PP. This culminated later on the fad of marathon farming for no-mod and hard-zock players. Mappers started mapping kind of streamy, kind of jumpy maps with OD8 to OD9 and over 2000 combo, which was kickstarted at the start of 2015 by Asphyxia's United map. Azer, a rising hidden hard-zock player, will hard-zock hidden it later on that year, achieving the highest hard-zock hidden score of all time. So far, mapping has been at the best it might have ever been since 2011 to 2013. Experimental, innovative maps were getting ranked left and right, with many highly controversial maps daring to challenge the restriction of mapping at the time, for the better or the worse. Hollow Wings made people forget about Skystar's reputation as the
Weird Bad,
"Oh my god"
I can't read
mapper of 2013, who had made a better name for himself after maps like Rotus, Neuronesia and Move That Body, which crystallized the structure of Neo Skystar's mapping style. There was a balance between farm maps, which still had some kind of decency to them, and normal maps, which were fun to play. Everyone was quite satisfied at that point. After many trials and tribulations, Genyu Kaiko goes into the rankings at the last quarter of the year. Lots and lots of drama.
This map is bad.
The end is impossible.
Loctav comes, unranks and nukes the map. This is when the staff realizes that quads are needed. Indeed, the qualification system makes its appearance around this time, second half of 2014. Same for Hanaido Biori, but after many disqualifications, it manages to pass to the rankings. The year ends with Daigenome getting ranked, and thanks to OD8 double time with triangles, top players get their easiest mid-high 300 PP of their life. As if it was the second coming of Koikokoro, even with a bad play, anyone can get their 300 PP play from it. The sad thing about Daigenome is that Last did not intend the map to be farmed for PP. He was invested in that song emotionally and tried to pour his soul into it. Best Friends is ranked and IR9 DT farming is officially viable. Much rejoicing as top players get their 400 PP from it, and IR9 DT tryharders do their best to get their share of mid 300 PP. What's Next is promised to be out at the start of next year. 2015, the year mapping died and PP killed it. As TV-size anime openings and endings grow in size and the player base grows faster, IR9DT becomes the new, only viable way to get any PP. Not even no-mod can stand much of a chance anymore. Even after the coming of United, the community's beloved map on which shit misses abound.
Sayo just double-timed the popular Hard Rock map Diamond?
Since when Wub Wub Wolf can play, I at 10.3.
The new Biomai Quay Wazurai gives so many PP.
Have you seen Natsukoi Hanabi? 3 PP if you can get lucky once on the stars.
Damn, I just one missed, but it's still my top rank.
Holy shit! New best friends! Time to get PP! Is what the Oz community was commonly talking about for the first half of the year. Then Sayo left, H3 got first.
Who is this Travis guy? He full comboed this 300 BPM map and has played for like 8 months. Oh, cool.
This is about when the roughest hate started to begin. There were random Koreans with 10.3 double-time hitdowns getting into and dropping out of the top 50 pretty much monthly. 300 PP scores abound, 400 PP scores become much less rare, but it's still pretty much all double-time hitdom. Mappers ignored Hanzer and went for the Ignite TV size version route instead.
Hard Rock Hidden is underrated.
People lament. Index happens and destroys the world. Hard Rock only. CS 6.5 buff happens. He full combo Dragon Force maps. Jenny's The Last Journey Home happens. Back then, qualified maps gave PP, as long as they weren't disqualified. Index farms it, but it got disqualified, for a minor reason. The community goes wild in the thread. After getting properly ranked, he gets 600 PP score on it anyway. Ice Angel happens, Silver gets a 600 PP score, but a slight debuff on the CS makes him lose some PP. Skystar makes Dreamless Wanderer around this time. It kickstarts same map Wub mapping and finalizes Neo Skystar's basic mapping style. He also accidentally discovers linear 1-2 jumps, giving the absolute PP in Ameto Asphalt, which become a staple element in PP star maps and ruins mapping forever. South takes notes of this and makes maps in that style, but more jumpy, with flow issues. Instead of fixing the issues in his later maps, spacing is increased, and he calls it a day. His My First Story maps happen after his Akiakane first map. Many other mappers will follow their example of unnecessary 1-2 linear jumps mapping in the future, copying same flow issues even, justifying it with
"But players cannot see them, so it's okay."
At the same time, a new mapper, Monstrata, starts ranking lots of maps with a distinct style of triangle and clean patterns, but the mapping style is pretty orderly and neat. It plays well and it makes low-level hard rock farming viable, so it is appreciated. He could be considered the Andrea/Oz Player 111 of 2015. The Magic Kaito anime as, and thus the Kantai Collection anime. Mirroring the Ignite happenings which had been overly hyped by the R-Oz game community already. If something is fun in minute amounts, it is
Absolutely hilarious in huge amounts.
Aino Scenario and Miro quickly become the most mapped songs of all Oz. Monstrata takes notes of this and decides to map Miro vs Aino Scenario as a joke map. But quads are killjoys, so they raise a lot of drama for technicalities about it. This has made a lot of people angry and was widely regarded as a bad move. The situation with the quad was getting tense. They were seen as way too finicky by the community, and they certainly were. They disqualified maps for the dumbest reasons possible, like Jenny's The Last Journey Home, and forced their views on mapping onto the mapper. The epitome of quad overzealousness was Gaia's Asymmetry mapset, which was being qualified before the other Asymmetry mapset, which contained many collab guess difficulties between quads and their friends. Allegedly, they did it so they could rank their mapset before Gaia's, which is what indeed happened in the end. So Captain's Diff, which was a pretty simple map with nothing too weird going on, has been taken apart and overly scrutinized needlessly. Gaia's mapset has been repeatedly disqualified for very stupid reasons, one of which
The background is unrelated to the map, A girl eating a candy apple has nothing to do with the song, which is about tragic love.
This song is about tragic love mapping trend. Captain ranted. Loctav came and ranted against Captain. Peppy came and stopped Loctav. He recognized the Quats had too much power at their hands and they were abusing it. So he stripped them of all their decision powers and reduced their role to pretty much disqualify the most obvious stuff. This was the beginning of the end. Mapping quality never recovered ever since. While it did get maps that deserved to be ranked to the rankings, it also allowed mappers to rank maps that had quality inversely proportional to their spacing of their jumps to get ranked without too much attrition. It didn't help that the RO's game folks were hyping high PP scores like never before, as Ruffis and H-Wick were shitting out 500 PP scores on TV-size farm maps. Miraizu comes. It normalizes huge 6-star spikes in 4.5-star maps. It's all downhill from there. Cookiezi came back shortly before, still banned, but SS's unranked 7-star 7-minute R-less maps like it's nothing. Lots of players start to play 7-star unranked maps with the same patterns as 5.8-star maps, just more spaced, because it is so much fun.
It's like playing Gadman as 50k.
But I'm actually hitting the notes this time.
Shonen ripples happens. Possible 8-star maps happen. And it makes a lot of people overestimate their abilities, as bad as passing Airman and R9 double time maps 2 years ago. As H-Wick played his Eroge maps, it made no mod mappers map not for the people to play, but for DT players to farm. This is the beginning of mapping purely, exclusively for PP, where all maps started to converge towards becoming the same map at different BPM with different MP3s. Monstata tried his hand at PP mapping for top double-time players with Kimi no Shiranai Monogatari, and while he was relatively successful with it, he gets way more success with low-level no-mod hard rock farmers, with Miro vs Aino scenario, earning many of his first "Thank you, Mr. Monstatas," not yet in this form, and being recognized as the Triangle Master. He ranks Santa-san near Christmas under the guise of Oz needing difficult songs. The map being yet another 5-star at best, with 6.2-star linear jumps near the end. Thus PP mapping reaches the form it has today, and Sotarks, the newer FICO maps, etc. all build on top of this. Skystar makes his guess difficulty on Caramel Heaven and reaches his final form as PP Star. And Osnex is coming at the end of this year, now for sure. 2016. The year mapping revived, till mapping circle jerks and Monstata killed it again, with memes and pretentiousness. After the quad fiasco of 2015, a new problem challenges the ranking system. The hand-picked BNs are all inactive. On the third day, Loctav made it so anyone could become a BN, and Peppy saw that it was good. So BNs started mostly ranking their friends, same maps, and it was bad. I can only comment on this as an outsider, as I am not into any mapping circles, nor I have bothered looking too much into it, but the trend is certainly there. Some mappers are ranking a lot of their same map but with different amplicities. People play it as their mapping style gives PP, because it is full of triangles, triples and high spacing, which are very easy to adapt to while keeping a guise of structured mapping. This is both for no-mod farm maps, which also act as hard rock farm maps, because nowadays the distinction between no-mod and hard rock is dead, thanks to decimals, and the patterns are so uninspired and repetitive that circle size doesn't change anything at all once you get used to it. So no-mod versus hard rock is literally just a matter of picking whichever gives you the best accuracy. These maps are all mapped by well-respected mappers that certainly know how to map well, but somehow forgot to map the main parts of their map and filler map their way through the whole song. they get easily qualified and just as easily pass qualification. Monstata Maps Road of Resistance, the shining example of everything that is wrong with today's hard maps. It is already an overrated 6.6 star map for about 2000 combos, jumping to 7.3 stars for a couple of streams that seem taken out of what should be a 7.6 star diff, ending with raised spacing to emphasize no raise in intensity at all. After being called out for mapping all triangles and mapping for PP purposefully in his latest maps, he shielded himself with the impenetrable armor of ironic self-deprecation and mapped a map full of triangles. That a decision, thus starting his latest trend of justifying his bad mapping decisions with pretentious walls of text, full of sophism, pseudo-intellectualism and stuff like,
It is my vision. You cannot force your opinions on my map. Remember the quad fiasco?
With many great mappers and maps coming out of 2016, like 09 Kami, GG Burst, Buhey and many others, the return of Sheeran and other well-known mappers mapping the best they have ever mapped, 2016 could have been a great year for mapping. But the new mappers who grew up in the context of 2015 and 2016 mapping don't have a vision in their mapping as strong as the former mappers. They are implicitly influenced by the mapping meta to map overly spaced difficulty spikes and shying away from non-acute angles, because that is all they have had the chance of playing in 90% of the normally mapped maps that came out in the last 2 years. That is also true for players who have been playing this kind of maps for 2 years straight. This is how both players and mappers are, in a way, delusional and out of touch with what makes fun maps fun. The fun is in the PP they are getting, and not anymore in the maps they are playing. We can and we should have both. I will end this by saying that not all maps that give PP are badly mapped or uninspired, and that while most of the diffs in Monstata's Kurokono Basket map set are examples of Monstata's same map following a slide gimmick, the concept is great and I like the map set. The slider art in his Aspire map is a masterpiece of art and he certainly knows how to map well. I'm not just hating on him because it is cool to do so, or because I dislike him. What makes everything worse is that he knows how to map well, but pretends very hard to be retarded. I am also excited to see how the new loved category will work out and influence mapping. Depending on how it's played by the staff, it could be either a great thing incentivizing mappers to map interesting maps, or it could be the third death of mapping as we know it, by de-incentivizing good mappers to actually get their maps to a rankable state.
Because it's gonna get a scoreboard anyway.
Time will tell. The BATs were too... The BAT... Loctav locked the thread. Loctav locked the thread. Loctav locked the thread. Loctav locked the thread. That too has been quickly hit. And over 2000 combo, which was kicks. Mapper started mapping kinda Hallowings made people forget about Hallowings made forget Hallowings made is what the OS community was commonly taught, is what the